I want to take one last look at the bag itself to show you my final design decisions, and to do a review of the design of the bag itself. A post project review is always a good idea, I think, because uh, it gives you a sense of, okay, what worked really well? What might I do differently next time? And sometimes in the post project review, you realize that in fact the project you've worked on, even though you have worked on it for maybe hours, months, years, whatever, it just doesn't meet the moment for whatever reason. And that will happen. And then you have choices about to make about, do I want to give away this project? Do I want to keep tinkering with it and trying to improve it? Do I want to? And yeah, sometimes this happens. Do I want to discard it? I have on occasion ripped back completely finished hand knitted sweaters, and uncurled the yarn so I could wash it and get all the little kinks out of it having been knitted, uh, and just started completely over with a batch of yarn. Just because the sweater wasn't to my liking in the end. And if you know you're not going to use it or wear it or whatever, make other arrangements. Uh, it's okay to give away something that you've made and intended for yourself to somebody who will treasure it and appreciate it, and who won't constantly be going, "Oh my God, there's this big mistake in the front panel, and why didn't I rip it back or redo it or whatever?" So, post project review, never a bad idea. All right. So before I do that, though, I want to show you, I did ultimately decide to miter the corners at the bottom of the bag. And I did that um, less for aesthetic reasons and more because this, and I'm going to snip this thread off while I'm in here. Um, this corner, so this is the side of the bag that does not have a seam on it. It just has the bottom seam happening. This is a vulnerable spot. When I trimmed it, I might have trimmed it too close. It doesn't, and it, even without trimming it, it was just going to be vulnerable. And so mitering this corner just protects everything. Now nothing can ever dig its way into this vulnerable area and work its way out the bottom of the bag, because you know that would be something really important or valuable or meaningful or whatever. And now it just won't happen. And I'm not even going to trim this. It's just better to leave it intact. So to miter a corner, you from the inside of the bag, you match up the part with the side seam as well as the bottom seam. You line up these two seams, you just make a mark. And I have these wonderful new um, marking pens with refills in them that I'm really going to dig. I marked a line. You can barely see it here because I already ran the heat over it. Marked a line and just stitched across it once as a basting layer. And I should have done it with my hand needle, because you'll see in a second that the seams don't match. And then I did it again on the triple stitch on my sewing machine for extra sturdiness. And here we are turning the bag out. Um, so this is the side without the side seam. And again, it's just giving it a little added protection in that corner that could have been a problem area. And on the side where I didn't, where there are two seams meeting and I didn't baste, see, look what happened. Always hand based. Um, and now I've attached one of my overall clasp, one of the overall buttons. And these come in two pieces. I've showed them to you before. They come in a piece that sits on the inside of the bag, and then another one that is the decorative part. And they just, you hammer them in, and I'll show you this in a second, um, and attach them. And I did not go straight through the side seam because there's just way too much bulk going through the seam. Plus, I did not want any vulnerability. This is what happened on my poor purple bag here, is that I had snipped a little hole for one of the buttons, and the hole just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, even though I'd interfaced it. And so the overall button just kept coming out. So to prevent that from happening, I'm not snipping at all and just doing it slightly off center, which is fine. And now I'm going to do the one on the other side of the bag. So let's show you how that works. And to do that, all you need is a hammer and a surface you don't mind hammering on. So don't, for instance, do this on your marble countertops or your beautiful tile floors or anything like that. Yeah. So I'm folding the bag in half from the side seam here so that I can find the spot where I want the new little button to go. And I'm just going to push it in lightly just to hold it in the right place horizontally. And now I just want to match it up vertically. And I want to lower it just a smidge. And again, this isn't rocket surgery. Nobody's going to die if it's slightly off center. And this is the really hard part. It's especially hard part trying to do it on camera, knowing that, you know, hundreds, dozens, fives of people could be watching. And just working the point through is really tricky. So when I grabbed my hammer, I also grabbed my pliers here, thinking that that might help me push it through. Let's see how that goes. It's tricky because the top of this button, the flat surface of it, is so tiny. There's just not much room to move around with. So that maybe helped a little bit. You can almost kind of sort of see the point sticking through here. And I'm just going to keep at it until I get it through. And again, oh, it's also going to help if I turn my pliers to actually fully clasp. Okay, so just keep pressing, pressing, pressing until that point, as much of that point comes through as possible. And you just have to keep working it. And it turns out it is a lot easier to do this when you've got pliers because, as I will keep reiterating, the surface of this button, of this fixing button, I'm sure it's got a real name and I just don't know what it is so small. So, okay, now you can see that I've got enough of the button coming through that when I start hammering the decorative piece on top, it will have something to latch onto, which is what we want. Okay, and also too, you don't want this bottom part to be flopping around and falling out, because once it's out of position, you're not going to be able to hammer the top button on straight. And I'm putting just one layer over this because I really do need a hard surface to hammer against. Ask me how I know. And this is going to get loud. Okay, but voila. Once I started hammering, the two pieces mated for life and they're not coming apart. Though it never hurts to give them just a couple more whacks. Okay, so now I've got buttons on, and for the time being, until I've got time to fully make my design for the real strap for this bag, I am just going to use the old purple strap that I wove for my purple bag. And yeah, this is not a good marriage of color and design and all that. But the advantage is this one's done and I'll be able to use my bag this week. And their really obvious mismatch is going to encourage me to get cracking on a new strap, which, as luck would have it, I was inspired by. So every now and then something pops up at the right time and you go, oh yeah, that's what I want. And for me, this was a Long Thread Media email reminding me of something I already knew, which was that Long Thread Media has a class on what is called turned croke brogd on the Inca loom, and the pattern that the instructor has you make first has little sheep on it. So of course that is what I'm going to have to do, but and it'll mean a new technique, which is also fun. Okay, but very quickly, let's do a quick overview of what I think worked on this design and what didn't. This overall design, and when I design, it takes me about a million times longer to finish a project than when I'm just going off somebody else's design, which is probably the other reason I'm such a lazy designer and I'd much rather just do what somebody else did with some minor tweaks. Okay, so I love the front of this bag. I love how I've got this symmetrical pattern going on, and I can, if I so choose, add temporary or permanent embellishments to this. So let's say, for instance, that I wanted to needle felt a design on this. I've got the perfect background to do that and the perfect space to do that. These accent stripes just kind of frame it. On the back, I'm kind of wishing I had done another one of those accent stripes, but again, I can live with this. I do wish now that I had sewn a lining in the bag and sewn the pocket to the lining instead of sewing it on. So we saw last week that my pocket wasn't perfectly square, didn't get sewn on square. And what I really don't like is this black seam showing in this white area of the fabric. However, this is all stuff I can live with. I love the size of this. I tested it out, and my 8.5 by 11 notebooks fit in here perfectly. There's no excess space for stuff to roll around. It's just kind of perfect. This pocket is going to be great for little tiny things that inevitably end up at the bottom of the bag, just rolling around, doing their roly thing. And so I'm glad I put a pocket in, but if I had sewn a lining and then with a pocket and then hand sewn it around, I could have done more with this pocket and made it even better. This might actually be too deep a pocket for my purposes. The last thing I want to say, using this yarn, this hand spun yarn, was both a good decision and a bad decision. It was a good decision because I would never have used this yarn for any kind of garment because it's just too coarse. It's just not comfy. It might have made a good blanket. And in fact, it turns out that when you full a coarse yarn, it gets softer. So this fabric is softer than the original yarn was by quite a lot. But the thing about this yarn, and this would happen no matter what I made with it, is it sheds like nobody's business. I have got little black flecks of yarn all over my sewing area now. And it may be that after I have used this bag as a tote bag this week, I'm going to go, wow, you know what? I can't use this as a tote bag. I'm going to have to do something else that won't shed all over my clothes. And in that case, I will repurpose this bag by just taking off the straps and turning it into a yarn basket. There's absolutely no reason it can't become a yarn basket. It's the abrasion that's going to make it shed, just like when you're petting your cat or my cat. So I'm going to say, yeah, I learned a lot from this project, and I'm going to say like B plus, A minus, E pleased with how it turned out. But that grade might go down after I start using it and seeing if it does shed all over my clothing or all over my workspace at the office or whatever. So when I get back to the strap, the new strap, I will check back in with you all. Hope you've enjoyed this look at this critical review of my project.